Okay, hi everybody, Barbara Mancuni Smith here, and today we are talking about addiction. Okay, let me see because it's the first time whether we're live on Instagram um, and Facebook. So let's see how that goes, you guys. As always, come in, chime in, tell us where you're watching from, and if you have any questions, let me know, and I will address them here during the live. And if you're watching the replay, you can also write your questions, and I'll make sure to address your questions. Okay. So today is going to be a little bit of very explosive live. We're going to talk about addiction and not the one that you are used to think. It's not about your son, it's not about your ex, it's not about your neighbor, it's not about this or that celebrity, it's about you. Yes, you who are watching right now. You may not know, but you are an addict. If you're watching right now, you're an addict. So, this live is for you. And we're going to talk about how your addictions are preventing you from healing. And that's really an important topic, an important conversation, not one that is really very much talked about. Because when we think addiction, we always think about other people, not us, right? Usually we think addiction, we think about drugs, we think about cocaine, we think about alcohol, we think about gambling, we think about sex. And sometimes we think about food as well. But usually, even though when we think about food, is always considered as an extreme behavior. And because most of you may think, I don't have an extreme behavior with food. I'm able to do detoxes and restrict myself whenever I want. So I must not be in the group considered addicted, right? But what I'm here to tell you today is that the truth is that you all are addicted. I'm an addict, you are an addict, and most likely the reason why you're not able to heal, it's because you're an addict and your addiction is preventing you from truly see what is the acorn, I call it, as the problem that is hindering your healing process. Okay. So we're talking addiction today. And again, as I said, if you're joining us now, this is not the addiction that you're usually think about. This is not someone else's addiction. This is your addiction. And if you're watching, if you're living and breathing, you are an addict. Okay. You're an addict. I'm an addict. Your spouse is an addict. And chances are your little 5-year-old is already an addict. So let's talk about this. Let's see how can we, first of all, become aware of this process and then see what we can do about it. Okay. Okay, so I wrote some notes, and sometimes you will see me looking down because I just want to keep the conversation going. It's very intense, and there's a lot of information that I'm going to disclose with you guys today. So, and again, if I look up and down, it's my first time. We're live on Instagram and Facebook, okay? Okay, you guys, and again, if you have any comments, please let me know, chime in, and I'll be happy to enter them live. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about what addiction is, right? Because I've been going on saying that you're all addicts, and most of you may be like, what does she mean with that? Okay, so let me read you what the definition of addiction is, okay? So addiction is any behavior, okay? Any behavior in which a person finds a temporary relief or pleasure, but suffers negative consequences. Okay, so any behavior in which a person finds a temporary relief or pleasure, but, there's a but, suffers negative consequences. And it's not over. And negative consequences that is not willing or able, he or she is not willing or able to let go despite the negative consequences. So mind you that in this definition, I haven't used once the word drugs. Okay, so I want to repeat this one more time to you guys because I want to see if you can recognize yourself in this description. So it's any behavior in which a person finds some temporary, so not long lasting, but temporary relief or pleasure, but suffers negative consequences and yet is not able to let go of the behavior despite the negative consequences. Is not able or willing. So with this in mind, you guys, do you recognize yourself in this description? Raise your hand if you have ever experienced a situation or a behavior in which you you are in it for the immediate benefit, immediate relief or pleasure, but you are aware of the negative consequences that will come due to this behavior, and yet you do it anyway. Okay, so raise your hands, chime in, say yes, Barbara, you know what, and give us examples, because my premise of this live today is that we're all addicts, and our addictions, the many addictions we have, not even one, is what is preventing us from truly healing. So my statement is we're all addicts, and I'm going to try to prove this to you. But if you disagree, please chime in. Or if you agree, and if you say, you know what, based on the description you just gave us, which by the way is not mine, it's kind of a recognized description, but Gabor Mate, for instance, talks about this description in the extensive work that he's done over the years with addicts. And we're talking about addicts specifically, drugs and alcohol or food. But he also himself, Gabor Mate, talks about the fact that in this description, the word drugs is never included. So truly, when we think about addiction, we think about substances, but it doesn't have to be like this. And today I'm going to talk to you about other things that make us addicted. They don't have to be substances. So if you guys don't have a substance abuse issue, it doesn't mean that you're not an addict, okay? So let's, again, chime in, right? Say hi. I just want to make sure it works. So I'm just going to start the thread here. Okay, so what does it mean that basically I just pointed the fingers at all of you and say you are all addicts. I'm an addict. Your spouse is an addict. Your mom is an addict. Your sister is. Your little one possibly, sadly, is already an addict. So what does that mean? Okay. So when we think about a behavior, again, not a substance, but a behavior that temporarily helps us in any way, gives us release or gives us pleasure, or it's convenient, but then, we suffer negative consequences. And again, when I say we suffer, it's on an individual level, but then, as I will show you, can also be on a family level and a collective level, a societal level. So let's start with the macro, and then we're going to start zooming in into the individual, right? So again, I've asked you guys, does anybody here recognize himself or herself in that description? Meaning a behavior, addiction is a behavior in which a person finds temporary relief or pleasure, but suffers negative consequences and is not able to let go of that behavior despite the negative consequences. So do you recognize yourself in this behavior? Okay, so Bethany said yes, possibly. Okay, well, we're getting there. We're getting warmed up. Okay, so as I said, let's go macro and let's then zoom in into the micro. So for instance, we know that global warming, at this point, it's ludicrous to even dispute it, but we know that driving cars, right, it's bad for the environment, and yet most of us continue to drive cars. We know that plastic, it's bad for the environment, and yes, most of us continues to use plastic. Do you see where I'm going with this? So due to your convenience, your necessity, your immediate pleasure or relief, you continue to have behavior that you are well aware will yield negative consequences, and you do it anyway. Because there's a little bit of a dissonance between, it's, for instance, people who eat meat, right? Bethany says it's a complicated answer, but probably contributes to the struggle with life balance. Well, yeah, we're getting there, Bethany. So I said, let's start macro, on the macro level, and then we go micro. So you drive, even though you know it's bad for the environment, you still drive. Why? Because of the convenience. So there's something in it for you in that moment. Why? Because the idea of having to walk, for instance, or using public transportation just doesn't appeal. And depending on where you live, sometimes it's even impossible. So you continue to act on and make yours a behavior, even though you know it has negative consequences. Imagine it about the greed and the profit. That's an addiction to profit, right? Pharmaceutical companies, many different other type of companies, they know that they are producing harm, but in lieu of the profit that they will make, they'll continue to do it. Whether it's continue to build plastic, polluting the streams, selling pharmaceuticals that will harm people, but they will continue to do that. That's addiction to profit, for instance. So again, we're starting macro here, right? But so from a societal perspective, we know it's wrong and we still do it, right? We drive and we still do it. We know it's wrong, we do it. Why? Because if we don't, then we have to deal with the negative side of things, right? Oh my God, now I don't have a car. I have to, what? Drive a bike? It's not convenient, right? Using plastic, it's really not convenient not to, or be able to completely eliminate plastic from my life. I mean, you can reduce packaging and whatnot, but you can bring your bag to the grocery store. But this is not it's reducing plastic, but you're still dependent on plastic. Go around your house and see how many things are made of plastic, right? And then you've seen though the oceans of plastic and animals dying, dissected, and they die because of the plastic they ingest, right? Anyway, we still all do it. I want to bring you from the macro to the micro to show you what is this behaviors that we all do, right? So, food. Obviously, a lot of you are here because we talk about food. Food, of course, is a crutch. Why? We eat that food because it gives us a temporary relief or pleasure, even though we know that eventually long-term results will be affecting us adversely, right? So that's an example. But I'm not just talking about people who really have a disorder with food. I'm talking about each one of you. Each one of you, when you decide that you're done with the detox and so you reach out for that chocolate, you reach out for the glass of wine, for the beer over and over again. And again, you're not an addict in the common sense of the word. You don't think you have an alcohol problem, but the moment in which you reach out to the glass of wine to just give you temporary relief, even though you know that maybe your digestive system is going to be messed up, your gut microbiome is going to be messed up, your acidity level in your body is going to be messed up, and so on and so on, your inflammation level, all of it, and you still reach out for the glass of wine, for the beer, for that cake, for that coffee. And you still do it. Do you see where I'm going with this? I would even go to the extent, you guys, of talking about behaviors. We're addicted to behaviors. Why? A category that I work with a lot is moms. And so moms, for instance, are addicted to their role as mothers. So they have this baby, and now they come with the old baggage, but the moment this baby is born, all of their priorities, all of their needs are just thrown out of the windows, and they're focusing on this baby. Even though, over and over again, we hear everywhere, you got to put yourself first, you got to find your me time, you have to do all of this. And a lot of the clients I work with, we still struggle with really putting ourselves first, with really creating different priorities for ourselves. Why? Because we're addicted to the role. Every time I hear from you guys say, well, but my kids need me, you are addicted to feel needed, because that addiction allows you temporarily to not think about your problems, your own dramas that you have left unresolved, and focusing on the child and convincing yourself that that child needs you to the point that you can't take off and put yourself first, allows you to, again, temporarily have a relief because you're not dealing with your issues, and say, well, I'm needed here. My child needs me. I can do all of this. And most of the times, by you not being able to deal with your own issues and basically annulling yourself for this child, yields negative consequences. Remember the definition of addiction that we just talked about at the beginning? So behavior we can also be addicted to behaviors. And again, you guys, I haven't talked about substances yet. This is not a conversation about cocaine or alcohol abuse, gambling, sex, and all of that. This is a conversation of how just you and I, regular Joe Schmo here and Jane Doe, are considered addicts, and our mentality that we are not aware of is creating a situation in which we are hindering our own health, our own well-being, due to this addictive behavior and lifestyle that we have adopted. Now, nobody's going to go around and tell you that you're an addict because you're taking care of your son. But the truth is, the inability to find balance in your life is an addiction in itself. Do you see where I'm going with this? Do you see why today we're talking about addiction, maybe in a way that you've never heard before? And again, I'm not trying to be too abrupt. I want to wake you up and make you aware that our inability to heal is due to addiction, because if we take these behaviors that are giving us temporary pleasure and or relief from what? That's the other question that we're going to address. They're giving us temporary pleasure or relief, but then we suffer negative consequences. The negative consequences that you're suffering are the ones that you're here for. The reason why you're watching, the reason why you work with me or people like me, because you're suffering negative consequences and you're trying to find answers, most times, by most practitioners, outside of you. You notice how many practitioners are guiding you and leading you to believe that the source of your misery lies outside of you. Could be a virus, could be chemicals, could be the environment, could be politics, could be the husband of yours, could be the trauma that you had when you were little. It's always outside of you. It was your parents' fault. It was the war fault. It was, your genetics fault. Guys, even specifically about addiction, it hasn't been proven yet that there is a gene connected to addiction, which you'll be amazed, because if any of you has ever even gone to any AA meetings or dealt with people who are considered, so to speak, addict, you will know that the conversation is genetics. It runs in the families, it's genetics, you're sick, it's not your fault. This couldn't be further from the truth, you guys. I have friends who define themselves as alcoholics that took their lives into their own hands, decided to go to rehab. They came out of rehab. They haven't touched an ounce, a drop of alcohol in so many years. So they're cured. But really not. They teach them that they're never going to be cured as long as, because they cannot consume alcohol. The moment they will, then they're going to fall back again. And so, but as long as they stay away from alcohol, and there are all these nice support groups that continue to make them believe that there's something wrong with them, that the alcohol and the genetics is their problem. And then what happens? Most of them, if not all of them, end up substituting that alcohol for something else, like sweets, for instance, like sugar. But because sugar is more accepted from a society, then that person is not an addict anymore. That person is not an addict because he was using alcohol and or sugar afterwards. The person is using the substance and or the behavior as a solution, as a temporary solution, not to feel the pain of life, not to deal with the trauma. Alcohol, sex, gambling, food, they're never the problem. That's why I never recommend people to go to support groups, specifically, AA, the bulimia, the anorexic, none of this, because they miss the point. Substances and or behavior are not the problem. They are a dysfunctional solution. We try to find a solution. And so alcohol in that moment gives us that relief. Whether you're a mom, and again, you guys have been talking for years about foreseeing these epidemics of alcohol abuse in the moms group, because it's fun. And we all share the same misery. Let's get together and wine and vent and drink this wine. Rosé time all the time, right? And we don't see what's happening. How most moms are addicts. But not because they abuse the rosé. It's because they are abusing, they try to find a dysfunctional solution to relieve them from a reality they're not willing to see. Does it make sense? So, the idea of addiction, you guys, in the way we have the society shares it, and in the way these AA groups and whatnot, whatever anonymous group of the moment shares it, is taking our responsibility, is keeping us off the hook As I said, practitioners out there telling you that the reasons for your misery lies outside of yourself. And by telling you that, they're disempowering you. Because, oh my God, they think they're telling you something that you want to hear, something that is freeing you, but truly not. Because what they're telling you is, it's not your fault. And it's not even about fault, but it's not about you. It's your genetics, it's the viruses, it's the environment, it's your relationships, it's your ancestry, but it's nothing to do with you. But what we're discussing here is understanding, first of all, that we're all addicts. Social media. I have people telling me how much social media is creating disruption in their family. How much just to do a morning routine with lemon water, smoothies, juices, it takes them well over past noon, because in the meantime, they're on the social media. Have you ever found yourself trying to reach out for the phone and the phone is not there, you can't find it, but you try, with your hand, try to find it. And if you don't find it, you start getting antsy. There's no substance there, and yet there's an addictive behavior. But what does social media do? Have you ever experienced pain recently, in the past? And what do you do now that we have this possibility? Because at my grandmother's time, there was no social media. But what do? We often go on social media to distract ourselves from what? From the pain, the physical pain, because it takes our mind away from the physical pain. And so it's a better way to cope. You listen to podcasts, you do other things, but anything that you can do not to live your moment. So anything, I should rewrite, at least in this context, this definition of addiction to say any behavior that allows us to remove ourselves from dealing with our present that we repeatedly undertake is an addiction. Does it make sense? Again, you don't have to be diagnosed. You don't have to have an alcohol abuse problem for the conversation we're having today to be defined as an addict. In this context, we're all addicts. And in this context, we're also, what I'm trying to tell you is, removed from the responsibility to really look at what it is that we're doing or not doing and take ownership of that. Because as I said, when you go out there, all these practitioners are so readily available to tell you that it's not your fault, and it's not, the solution doesn't lie within you. It's not your fault, right? So since it's a virus, this is what you need to do. The virus is already outside of yourself. Take supplements and other type of dietary prescription that is still outside of yourself, and try to fix something that you have nothing to do with. But this couldn't be further from the truth. And in essence, what makes me so mad is that it disempowers you. They think they're going to empower you by saying it's not you. But truthfully, they're disempowering you, and they leave you at the mercy of, so if you want to heal, you need to follow this protocol, you need to follow this regimen, you got to buy these supplements, because it's not about you, right? But you guys, instead, let's be honest and let's start looking at reality. Let's start looking, take responsibility, and not because it's a fault game. It's an awareness game. We all try to distract ourselves from dealing with life and dealing with reality, and that is creating the problem. Remember, if you guys have followed my the video I did a couple of days ago about stress-free life, right? We had the conversation there in which we are a more traumatized society versus the one generation versus the one of our parents, the one of our great-grandparents, and so on. Why? Simply because the unhealed trauma that is being transferred from generation to generation is now on our plate. And if we don't heal it, we're already transferring onto our kids. That's what I said at the beginning. Oh, unfortunately, your 4-year-old might be an addict already. So we are inheriting so much more trauma that is being unhealed. And why? We don't do anything to heal it. We distract ourselves. We take over addictive behavior not to deal with it. And so how can we aim at becoming a healthier society and leave to our children and their children a healthier world, and not just from a physical perspective, because you guys, I hope that you realize at this point that what you are dealing with physically, it's never a simple and a mere physical symptom, and it's always having a root cause that is beyond the chemistry. Right now, trauma can absolutely change the chemistry of your body. But when I talk trauma, people are like, well, but my childhood was fine, I have a loving family, I have a good husband, a good trauma, you guys, it's not just a sexual abuse or a physical abuse or living in a war zone. This is not just trauma. We're talking a trauma of living every day. Each one of us is living in a PTSD, whether we had a big trauma, multiple big traumas, a little trauma. Everybody is going through it, and because we are not equipped to deal and resolve it, we all continue to amass trauma, and we all continue to live in PTSD moment. We discussed this the other day, right? So today, what I wanted to bring to light was our behavior, and our behaviors that are so addictive that makes all of us addicts. And it's the unawareness of how we use behavior, situation, to hide the pain of living, because it's becoming more and more and more. We talked about stress, we talked about perception, where is stress coming from last week. So if you haven't watched that video, please go to Barbara Mancuni Smith in Instagram or YouTube, and it's pinned on top, and you will see it's a pretty good video about how to live a stress-free life. So we cover perception and stress there. Today we're covering and creating awareness about addiction, and why I came out today to say that we're all addicts. And that is one of the main reasons why we're not healing, because we're putting attention elsewhere. We're putting attention elsewhere to distract ourselves, but we're also putting attention elsewhere as to where the cause of our illness is, of our imbalances is. So until we take ownership and responsibility of the things we do or we don't do, and what we're trying to run from, it's going to be really hard for you to find sustained and continuous reversal symptoms, healing, and whatnot. It's going to be really hard. And so you're going to yo-yo from time of, better times and then re-acutization of symptoms, and then maybe better, than depending. But your awareness is not there. So today we're talking about how addiction is creating this. So in essence, addiction allows us not to live our present. And the reason why we want to escape our present is because probably it's not pleasant, right? Because it's rich with trauma and drama that we have created, but also we have inherited. And so we're dealing with this mess and we don't know what to do. So moms dedicate themselves, they lose themselves in motherhood, and they forget that they are first and foremost human beings. And you can never, the best thing that you can do for your child is to heal your own self, is to heal your own trauma. Because remember, you traumatized, you are passing it on, even if you think that you're doing all the best things, the best organic food, the best smoothie, the best diet, the best organic clothes, not much screen and not much this, and yet you being remissive on healing your own trauma, it's making you a parent that is a traumatized parent that is raising a traumatized child. There's no way around this, guys. If you don't solve your own trauma, there's no way that you can be an objective and a very healthy parent. Do you see what I'm saying? And it really, at this point, I'll go to the extent of say, give that child some McDonald's, but take the time to heal your own wounds. And you will be a better parent, and you will equip that child so much more than to just worry so much, losing yourself into all the little details of the gluten-free, sugar-free, everything-free cupcake and smoothie and the supplements and the sun and the vacation and the friends and when you're still traumatized. And if you are an addict today, you are traumatized. And if you're an addict today, it's because you don't want to look at your traumas, or you don't know how. That's most likely a solution, an answer. So becoming aware of that, it's fundamental. Now, let me see. When I talk trauma. I know we've been talking trauma a lot. People ask me, okay, but so everything goes back to trauma. Yes. Now, trauma is physical, emotional, spiritual. There are many this different level of depth of trauma. But make no mistake, if you're watching, if you're breathing today, you have it. There's nobody, as I said 2 days ago, trauma unites us all. Okay, trauma unites us all. So there isn't one of us that wasn't traumatized. And on a trauma level and on a spiritual level, the soul doesn't recognize small trauma or big trauma. Trauma is trauma. Okay. And so each one of us has to work on resolving the trauma. First of all, becoming aware that we do have them. Little trauma, small trauma, big traumas, it doesn't matter, we all have them. And then becoming aware of them, becoming aware of what are we doing not to even look at the trauma. It's not just I don't know what to do about it. It's also what is it that you are doing not to look at your trauma. And that's a conversation today about addiction. So when I have people who are clients who are diagnosed with cancer, and they're moms, and even at the last call, because you guys probably have heard me talking before about what disease is for me. Even at the last call, they're not able, because they're not able to be present. So fast forward for a second, backtrack for a second. Disease on a physical level is, in my consciousness, is the ultimate call from the soul to kind of come back to yourself, come back to the present. And if you think about it, disease in itself, the way disease is, right? The pain brings you to the present, because when it hurts, you can't think about anything else but this. It's hurting right now. You can just say, okay, I'm just gonna go and have fun. I mean, we try, as we said, with our addicted behavior to distract ourselves, thinking or taking supplements or medication or whatnot, to even alcohol, right? Why? Because it distracts ourselves and it just numbs us, so we don't feel. But so every addiction is an attempt on not living the present. But in the healthy world, disease is a healthy way. This, I mean, is the last call, as I call it, to call you back to the present, because when it hurts, you pay attention. I always said to people, how long is it going to take? They ask me, how long is it going to take to heal that? And I said, depends on how much it hurts. If it hurts, you're going to pay more attention. If it doesn't hurt as much, you're not going to pay as much as attention. So disease is the ultimate calling to be present. Disease is not something that is happening to your body outside of you and like, I can't do anything about it. This came from outside and I don't know, I'm a victim here. Disease is you, within you, a different part of you that is, hey, are you there? Are you there? Are we going to pay attention now? This is the only thing I have for you to pay attention, and that's the pain. So when we look at pain this way, it's the ultimate calling from our own self or higher self, however you want to call it, to be present, to pay attention to all the things that we did not want to pay attention. Why? Because they hurt. And so we just decide to numb ourselves and move on, right? With substances, behavior, and whatnot. Relationship is another one, right? Being in a relationship that you're not happy with, but you're numbing yourself and convincing yourself that either you are not going to be able to sustain or survive outside of that relationship, even though you know it's a toxic one, or that that person needs you so much that would not be able to sustain himself or herself without you. These are just like the addictive behavior and addictive lifestyle that we adopt. And so not to look at what, that if you get out of that toxic behavior, then you have to realize you have to pick up the pieces of why you end up in a toxic relationship to begin with. So anyway, so disease, as we intended, and in this scope with Be Well and everything I do, is the ultimate attempt from your higher self to bring you to the present. Okay, so as I said, I have moms with breast cancer, and they are at the last call, right? The body's like, hey, are you going to pay attention to yourself? Especially depending on where, the imbalance is also a more telling sign of where you need to pay attention. And it's not the physical part, it's the emotional part, the nurturing side when it's breast cancer, right? So, and even then, they keep telling me, well, but my kids, I have twins, I have this, I have to do that. And they're still doing the same things that they were doing before the last calling, but then worry so much about the disease, worry so much about dying, and yet they change nothing. The addiction is still the same. I am needed. I am giving myself away. I am not able to nurture myself because I don't think I'm worth it. All the limiting beliefs, all the trauma that we have inherited and internalized since we were little, but we continue to do them, even in the last call. So, the last call should be the opportunity to say, oh my God, I just realized that I am a finite being and I will die. The delusion that I call with all of my clients that I call out is that people come to me and they say, well, I got this diagnosis. Really, in their eyes, and sometimes are crying, sometimes are very emotional. They come to me like for that hope. And I know what they want to hear. They want to hear that I tell them, this is not going to be it for you. You're not going to die now. But the first thing I tell them is, they ask me, so am I dying? And the answer I always give them is, aren't we all? Because this is the truth, you guys. The one thing that you can be sure of the moment you're born is that we're gonna die. Now, we don't know how, we don't know when, but you're gonna die. You know, Elvis Presley's daughter just died a couple of days ago of a heart attack. She was alive and well 2 days before the Golden Globe, and then 2 days later, she's no longer there. Someone else just had like the actor, Jeremy Jenner, I believe, he was run over by his own snow machine. So one day he's there, you know, plowing the snow away. 20 minutes later, he's like about to lose his life and he's gonna have a long recovery ahead. We don't know when, but what we know is that we're all dying. So then we don't live though as if we're dying. We live like this disconnected life to where everybody's trying to get healthy so that they are what? They're not gonna die? That is also the delusion, right? So we are all gonna die. And we should all live remembering this, not to be obsessed about it and be living in fear, but we should embrace and accept the nature of our finite being, at least in this body, and live as if the person that you're staying with right now may be the last time you see that person. The conversation we're having right now may be the last conversation we're having. We should live like this, and that will bring us where? To the present. We wouldn't be worrying about the past and the future. When people are given a diagnosis, and I had a client who was given a 6 months diagnosis. He had a very bad lung disease, and they said it's not going to survive 6 months. So what was amazing for this couple was husband and wife, that instead of trying to figure out how can he live longer, they said, okay, I have 6 months. Let's just live the best 6 months of our life together. And they moved to Southern California. They bought a boat. They did amazing things together, because the point wasn't on not dying. The point was, okay, we're going to start living now, which is great. But in a sense, you understand the delusion. You don't need to get a cancer diagnosis to start living, to start realizing, oh man, I need to appreciate every single thing I do because it might be the last time. You need to live as if you remember that in fact you are all dying, because we are. And you should start putting attention more into your present and this completely disconnect from your past and what the past meant. Remember, 2 days ago we talked about stress and perception and the value that you give to an experience. So go watch that video again, because probably one of the best video I did so far. So that is important, and the conversation we're having today is important. Understanding how addiction is taking over our lives. Why? For our need, our constant need to what? To not deal with the what is. And the what is here in your present. And addiction wants to take us away from this pain. That's why an alcoholic drinks himself to death. You know, they did studies with mice, right? And because of that, they established that, you know, addiction, you know, the common acknowledged truth about addiction. So they put these mice in cages. They connected them to electrodes to study their brain waves and their behavior. And they connected, I think, to cocaine or something. And so they gave him a little level so that the mouse could by himself increase or decrease the amount of drugs that he was receiving. I mean, these mice would basically push this level and overdose. So from that, they realized that, addiction is genetics, and, and anyway, you guys, what they didn't take into consideration is that any animal brutalized and tortured will probably want to try to get out of that misery, and so try to, ciao Laura, will try to get out of that misery, and eventually even overdose, anything rather than that torture. But then some genius doctor in Canada realized, wait a minute, but what they had in common, these mice, it wasn't just genes, was also the situation they were kept in. So what happens if we take these mice, we put them in a free space? And they've tried this with horses and cows, you guys, and there's no chance that you can hook any animals or any drugs once they live free. There's no way. So that tells us that when we become addicts, it's because we are living in a sort of physical, emotional, and spiritual torture that we're trying to get out of. So our behavior, you guys losing yourself for your children, giving yourself away to your job, these are also addiction. The workaholic, right? And I will call it the motherholic. Let's create a new term now. You nullifying yourself for your kid. This is not healthy. This is not you being a good mother. This is you denying your issues and promise you that is not going to make you a good mother. So the point is, when we live free and happy, we don't have need for abuse, and we don't become addicts. But if we are addicted to anything, again, substances, behavior, usage, right? We drive the car even though we know it's bad for the environment, but we still do it. We eat meat even though it's bad for the animals and the environment, we still do it. Because you guys, people are like, no, I don't care about meat, blah, blah, blah. But then they have their dogs at home, and they are animal lovers, but they eat that cow. We have cows and horses and rabbits and all of it here where I live. And every day we feed the cows and we look at them in their face. And there's no way on a soul level that any human will relate to those eyes and say, I don't care, I will shoot you right now. There's no way. But because you see the little steak or filet mignon at the store, you don't see those eyes. And so there's that disconnection. So we continue on that behavior, even though we know the animals have to be tortured and die and killed for that filet mignon to look so pretty on your plate. Right? Behaviors, addiction. We need to become aware of that. We need to become how much we are addicted, as we said, phones, cell phones, communication, email, people that go on vacation. I have executives that go on vacation. They're not even able to relax. I have a number of them. And sadly, I used to be one of them 10 years ago. And you're still with your phone because your sense of self-worth is now that. So who are you if you take 10 days off, right? And again, so addiction is hindering our healing process because it doesn't allow us to see the present. Disease is the ultimate call that says, come here, come to the present. You feel it hurts? Be present, be here. Let's figure this out together. And yet I see a lot of you, even in the presence of disease, still looking outside for solution, still not listening to the calling of your soul. And it's like, where is it that I can find a solution here? It's here. It's here. The answer. Read books about spontaneous remissions. I always mention cured versus mind over medicines, you guys. There are thousands, if not millions of cases. Do you think that those were just happened? Whenever you get the message that is embedded in the disease no longer needs to be there. So when you understand this, then you understand that inside of you lies the key to your freedom, you guys. And if that's not a lesson they're willing to learn in this life, maybe you're going to learn it in the next one. But at least become aware. And you guys, again, if you have any comments or you're chiming in, try to see Instagram here. So I'm happy to answer, and I hope that it wasn't too heavy today, the conversation about addiction, but I really want you guys to ponder on what I said and really think about Is she crazy or am I an addict? And then look around you, your spouse, your child, your mom, your friend. Are we all addicts? Yes. Are we all obsessing about the way we look? Why? Because it takes us away. And with this, I'm not saying you shouldn't take care of yourself, but the obsessiveness, right? It takes us away from, the constant plastic surgery, the constant dieting, the constant exercise. And I'm not saying healthy exercise that you should all do 30 to 50 minutes a day. I'm talking about obsessing. If you're working, you're in vacation and you can't go to the gym and you need to find the next available gym because God forbid. These are all addictions, you guys. That takes us away from what? From the pain of the present. Because, if you're obsessed gym goer, there's pain there, right? If you eat and binge, there's pain there. Now, I also don't want you to reframe the value of addiction. I had a client who was abused when she was young by a father of a friend. And she never mentioned it to anybody. I was one of the first persons she mentioned it to. Anyway, her coping mechanism was binging. So she would go on a diet, on a detox, and she was able to be really strict because she was able to self restrict. But then she would go into binging, especially with chocolate. Whenever she would binge, she would say, bad me. I asked her to keep a diary, and she would say, bad me, bad me. You see, I'm self-loathing because I hate myself. I said, no. I remember her name was Beate. Reframe the concept of binging. And in this case, I'm talking to you guys about reframe the concept of addiction. When we overindulge in alcohol or abuse alcohol, when we abuse food, when we abuse behavior, right? Like we become helicopter moms, right? This is not because we hate ourselves. Now, we hate the trauma, but we don't hate ourselves. It is a defense mechanism. So in an essence, even if dysfunctionally, what you can say is that your binging is protecting you, is a self-preservation. Why? Because you're spread so thin and your vases are everything at capacity, right? You're full, you're spilling. That binging, that alcohol, that gambling is giving you that momentary relief that you need to say, oh, okay, to give you that breathing room. So rather than looking at binging or alcohol and addiction as, oh, this is really bad, I'm hating myself, I don't love myself, you have to look at this is an ultimate and dysfunctional way of preserving me, self-preserving, because I can't take it anymore, right? So I asked her my client who was binging on chocolate, to reframe this and look at herself with loving eyes and looking at her binging as a, like the firefighters coming in and say, okay, we're going to rescue this person. Now, you're not going to live with the firefighters, right? They rescue out of that situation momentarily and then you're on your own. Here, we're going through a second storm in Northern California. I have several families that have been displaced. They had to be taken and rescued with a helicopter. The helicopter came, rescued them, and put them on the other side of the mudslide and whatnot. But now they're living in hotels and shelters, right? So imagine your addiction as the helicopter that lifts you momentarily from the mess, right? And that is a good thing, because otherwise you would die. Because when you're not equipped to look at your trauma, that is what happens. You need some lift, right? So you got the helicopter that gets you out. So look at your addiction with loving eyes. Thank yourself for being, for the body to always put in place plan B, C, D, E, F, no matter how many plans to save you from death, right? Or untimely death. But then become aware and say, okay, the consequences of this behavior, I can't always call an helicopter, right? It's very expensive. There are going to be consequences. So you can't always rely on alcohol. You can't always hide yourself behind motherhood. You can't always hide yourself behind the next detox, because that's what you do. That's an addiction. Orthorexia is now in new terms, right? For people who have an eating disorder that is connected to obsessing about eating healthy and staying healthy. But why? All of this, you can give too many millions names, you guys. This doesn't matter. It's our need to get away from the present because you don't know how to cope. So as you've noticed, Yes, I do the lymphatic reset. Yes, I give you nutritional guidance. However, more and more I'm talking about what lies underneath our inability to live a balanced life, which is our trauma. And it's not a society that foster reality with this, like a healthy relationship with this. Nobody tells us since we're little that we're all traumatized, they were raised by traumatized parents, that they were raised also by traumatized parents, and so on. Nobody talks about this, and everybody's trying to say, if you are in this, you probably receive in your mail, in your feed, you will receive all this autoimmunity here. Let me tell you what kind of smoothie you can take to overcome autoimmunity. You have a cardiovascular disease, this is the diet for cardiovascular disease. Oh, no, this is the diet for cardiovascular disease, most likely always in conflict. And there's all this, it's like all these trees with this little flowers and little, acorns here and there, but the root cause nobody's addressing, which is within us, and is our unresolved traumas, the things that we don't want to see. And we continue to live like this, like in this delusion that the life is this delusional PTSD from past and future. We're forgetting the present. And then some of you are a little bit more enlightened, some of you that do some meditation or yoga, like, oh yeah, I know. I breathe and I get to the present, and I go to yoga and I'm a present. But again, living in the present, it's a way of being. It's not the hour in the week or the day that you do breathing and do yoga. And then what happens, remember I said last week, a couple of days ago, what happens between the yoga class and the next yoga class? Where are you then? Are you able to sustain that presence? Are you able to look at what we call the dark woods in the work that we do in Soul Circle? Are you able to look at that? Or it's just something that you just put behind, and then you're gonna numb yourself with a piece of food. And again, sometimes it's a piece of food, it's chocolate, it's sugar, it's alcohol, sometimes it's uber restriction. Oh no, I don't want to see that. So I'm gonna go on another 369. I'm gonna go on a juice cleanse. I'm gonna go and do that because, and again, there's nothing wrong with the detox here and there. What I'm saying is when we use behaviors to allow us not to feel. So what do? You prefer to feel the stomach that is contracting because you're hungry, and you force yourself to be on a juice cleanse rather than feel the actual soul pain that brought you to choose extreme behaviors. Does it make sense? So I hope that by bringing more and more awareness, and the work I'm doing here, you guys, I'm working on creating a platform where we will be able to heal together. The work I'm doing here, it's work that honestly I don't see around, because what I see around is mental health, we have a problem in our head, or when we talk trauma, is usually people that have been abused, veterans and whatnot. But the trauma of living, which is a reality, it's not really addressed. It's either specific categories of people who have been traumatized, so they need help because they have mental issues. You guys, some of this stuff is close to my house. We have people in our family that have been treated as mentally ill when that's not the problem, right? I have friends who consider themselves, or society considers them, addicts, whether it's alcohol or drugs, that have detoxed themselves and then rehab themselves. But as I said to you, now they're all onto sugar, for instance, but that's okay. Before, he was always out, not coming home at night because he was drinking too much. And now he does come home, but he doesn't come home without an ice cream every single night. And if there's no ice cream, he starts to get antsy, and he has to go, doesn't matter what's the weather, he has to go get ice cream. But hey, he's alcohol free, he's in rehab, he's sober. He's not sober, it's just substituting one for another. But the real root cause, what the problem was, if you look at alcohol as the problem, you're missing the real problem. Alcohol is a solution. Dysfunctional, but it's a solution. The binging is a solution, right? So the obsessive compulsiveness of going over and over again through detox phases and restricted regimen, these are decoy that we use not to feel the real pain. So we're all addicts, and we all try to run away. And my goal I've been called more and more to create a platform and a space where people can come together and look in the face these things that we don't want to look at. And we don't have to be labeled at, you know, an alcoholic, you know, an helicopter mom. We don't have to be labeled, but we have to just be aware of the condition as humans, at least in this day and age. And as I said, we have also inherited trauma, so we're so much more traumatized than our parents. And our parents were so much more traumatized than their parents, even though those parents were through the war. One war, First World War, Second World War. This is us in Europe, in America, of course, other wars still going. So you guys, we are much more traumatized. That's why this society is namely much sicker than the previous one. And they are saying that our kids will be more sick than us. And yes, they want you to believe that it's the mold and the pollution, you know, and the chemicals and the soil depleted. But you guys, we have proofs that there are people who do thrive despite the gluten, the pollution, and the heavy metals. So I've done this conversation over and over again. We're going to talk about this in my retreat in Italy in April. But don't believe that. Don't believe that you are here, unfortunately, in this day and time, and you need to find outside of yourself solutions, that whatever is happening to you has nothing to do with you. And not to blame you, because it's not a blame, but you need to become aware of where the issues lies. And look at the trauma, not as, oh my God, I realize I have so much trauma. I realize the pain. Poor me. Each one of us, I always joke with my clients during Soul Circle, because I tell them, you know, my daughter, she eats healthy. I post stuff about her choosing fruit over a lot of other garbage food. I mean, that compared to a lot of other kids, like, oh my God, you're so lucky. But I promise you that my daughter will have her own issues, that despite my awareness and the work I'm doing, she will still have her own issue. Why? Because there isn't one of us that doesn't have trauma. Remember, trauma unites us. And trauma-free is not the goal. We need trauma, like we need disease, as a springboard to get to a different place. If we don't have the trauma and the hurdle and the obstacles, we wouldn't be able to force ourselves to do the work to get to a different level of enlightenment. Otherwise, it would just be flat. You come, you're born, you live, you die, and that's it. But the real journey is that one, is to overcome our burdens and our traumas and dramas. The problem and what the work I'm doing here is to try to make you aware that the answers are not outside, they're not in a bottle, they're not in a pill, they're not in a smoothie, even though, of course, you want to have good nutrition, just simply because it makes you more connected. But technically, you could do this also by going to McDonald's. And I do have proofs of people that have not a perfect diet and are in very good health. Why? Because they're able to deal with their emotions. When you are drinking and you're going to McDonald's to numb yourself, you might call it McDonald's, you might call it alcohol, you might call it sex or gambling. It's still the same. You're trying to numb yourself. You're not seeing what the problem is, right? So what I'm trying to say to you guys is that food alone is not going to do it. And food alone is almost taking, especially when you take it obsessively as a behavior, as an addictive behavior, is taking you away from the truth, right? But you could conversely do less healthy food and more awareness and trauma work and get away with not so healthy food and not be sick. Okay, but the point is, each one of us, no matter what we are, we have our hurdles that we have to overcome. And as I said, if you don't overcome them now, you may be going to have a chance in another life. And make no mistake, you're going to pass them on to your kids. And maybe you already have. So the best thing you can do for your kids is to heal yourself. Doesn't make sense? So that we can all evolve collectively and spiritually, right? But we're not all disconnected. Remember, we talked 2 days ago about how your cells right now, in your cells, there's your grandmother's cells. Because when your grandmother was pregnant with your mom, she was already developing, your mom was already developing while in the womb, the cells that will then create the eggs that make you. So you were already present on a cell level within your grandmother's. Your grandmother was producing your mom and those cells within your mom that is you today. So you guys, we carry this on with us, and your child and your grandchildren. In a sense, you've already produced your future grandchild, right? So awareness, creating having access to a platform that allows you to look at the trauma of life, not specific trauma, not the abuse, not this, not the divorce, not the sexual, the trauma of life, and start from there. Okay, and if you guys have any questions, again, I will check both comments, you know, and I will answer. Okay, I received a lot of questions and emails after the stress, how to live a stress-free life the other day. So I might want to do a part 2 to address some of these questions. So stay tuned, because the next couple of days I will put this on. And again, we're trying to move all of my lives into my YouTube channel so that you can always catch up there if you miss any of them or want to come back or want to share. Okay. Thank you so much for being with me today, and have a great weekend.